Thank you all so much.
Good morning.
Hope you enjoyed the first part of our day, getting into a little bit of the politics of the day. It is sometimes better to be lucky than good. We are having the conference as a lot is happening in the Capitol, but I am thrilled to be joined by these two senators. We're going to shift gears a little bit here to talk about working across the aisle. As much as power shifts and change is in Washington, one of the hallmarks that we have seen, particularly in the Senate, which you all now are in, is the ability to work across and kind of find areas where Republicans and Democrats can come together. So I can think of no better people to have here this morning than freshman Senators Lisa Blunt Rochester, the Democrat from Delaware, and Jim Banks, the Republican from Indiana, to talk about how they are approaching their new roles in the Senate and possibly where we might find some ability to work together. I want to start off here. Let's go back in time a little bit. You were both in the House. How did you approach not just kind of working only with your own party, but across the aisle? In the House, obviously a little bit more ragtag sometimes, you know, it's a little bit more partisan. But Senator Blunt Rochester, we'll start with you.
Great. Well, first of all, it's great to be at Punch Bowl. Hello, everyone. I need some energy. Good grief, wake up. Hello. This is actually the panel that will bring some light and some hope. So, no offense to the others. But I have to say that coming into the House in 2016, I came in the minority. And I came in under a Trump administration. And I come from a state that is urban, suburban, rural, and coastal. We're only 3 counties, but we vote blue, purple, and red. And so it was important for me to be bipartisan and to represent my state because that's how you get things done, and especially get things done that last. And so from the very beginning, our class had a lot of bipartisan activities that a lot of times I was like one of the organizers. I did a March Madness, you know, dinner, and I don't even care about basketball like that. But it was like I got people to come out. We shut down the Holocaust Museum one night and talked about immigration with no cameras, no media. And our class ended up being the class that had Jamie Raskin, Pramila Jayapal, Speaker Johnson, Matt Gaetz, but we were a diverse class, and that's right. And my good buddy here, and actually I have your autograph because I did a yearbook, and I just went around and got everybody's autographs. And I think it has been important for us, whether I work on supply chains, telehealth, PBM reform. All of these bills were bipartisan bills, clean slate legislation. And I think for my constituents, it instills confidence in government. I think, again, it also makes for better, more lasting, policy and legislation. So I get excited about doing that work, and I like to have what I call strange bedfellow bills, people that you might not think of coming together.
Senator?
Yeah,
I know you care about March Madness, being from Indiana.
I do care about basketball in Indiana.
We have one difference of it being in here.
University of Delaware is in there, too.
I don't know if Lisa, if you find this, but we came into the House together in the 2016 election, as she said. And so we've been around longer than Punch Bowl's been around.
Oh,
we've been around a while.
It's true.
But that whole time, what's been consistent has been Trump. 4 years of Trump, 4 years of Trump out of office, and now in the new Trump administration. And I don't know what it was like before that, but I found in the House that, I'm talking out loud here, my staff, this isn't scripted, but I found in the House that it's really shirts and skins, us versus them, right? Every day is a fight, it's a battle. And Lisa, what I'm loving about the Senate is we already have a relationship. Elizabeth Warren invites me to her office last week for tea. Yeah. I don't agree with Elizabeth Warren about almost anything, but she was intentional about bringing me to her office to discuss places where we might be able to find common ground to introduce bills together. Senator Padilla and I introduced a bill today about more emergency rooms around the country testing for fentanyl and overdoses, especially of kids, called Tyler's Law. And I love that dynamic about the Senate, how intentional we are. Because it's because of, I think at the end of the day, I didn't study this in political science class at Indiana University this deeply, but I think at the end of the day, it's all about the rules. In the House, it's majority control, so it's all about who's in the majority. In the Senate, unanimous, it's about unanimous consent and requiring 60 votes. So for us to get anything done,
That's right.
we have to work together. And as much as I complained about the Senate rules as a House member, I'm rather enjoying it today.
And it's 6 years instead of 2 years, right? I mean, there seems like that gives you a little bit of breathing space in some cases to potentially go out on a limb or find, working across the aisle with somebody you might not typically, because you kind of have a little bit more space, I imagine.
Adam Schiff called me on Election Day to congratulate me. I mean, I think I listened to it in the car. I almost swerved off the road. But and for 8 years in the House, we battled with each other. And then in the Senate, you realize that we have to work together. So.
Do you think, I feel like I talk to members all the time. We know certainly there's kind of those discrete issues where people can work together. They find those kind of commonalities. Fentanyl, I think about the opioid crisis. There's a lot of other issues, sometimes in financial services and help. We'll kind of talk about some of the committees you're on. But that gets lost in translation, right? I think back home, most people say, no one works together. They don't really even like their own Congress people anymore. Is that a problem, and how do you fix that?
Yeah. Well, again, similar to what Jim said, we had our freshman orientation, and I remember the senators who presented before us all talked about unanimous consent. As a matter of fact, we had our Senate dinner, and I was sat next to Mitch McConnell, who is a person I haven't had much interaction with at all. And so he actually shared the same thing about unanimous consent. And I think that, I think about the difference for me between the House and the Senate a lot. Part of it is this piece about coming together and being able to get things done. Some of it for me is people said it was slower. It doesn't feel slower. What happens on the floor feels slower because of the rules, as Jim was saying, but the volume of requests to our office has exponentially grown. And that's because of nominations, that's because of trade and things that are outside of maybe your committee of jurisdiction that people come to you for. So the time is a lot different. The people and the relationship building, I think, is really, really important. I just got out of committee a bill on supply chains, which has been really important to me. We found that during the pandemic, we really saw the impact of our broken supply chains and not being able to make sure that we mitigate any kind of risk. Well, it is a Cantwell, Blackburn, Blunt, Rochester supply chain bill. These are things that, for us, we know this is going to have a real impact. And then I think the other thing that is really, really different is the press, like the media. Like, you can't even walk onto wouldn't you say that's like the subway? When I'm walking to my car, people are chasing me. That did not happen in the House. It might be because there were 435 people, but that has been very different as well. I'm excited, though, about the potential of getting stuff done. And to your point about 6 years, the ability to actually work on things deeply and get stuff done. That's really why we're here, to have an impact on the lives of our constituents.
I want to double click on jobs and manufacturing, because I know it's something that both of you are pretty passionate about. Can you talk first, just generally, how important manufacturing is to both of your home states? And then I'd love to ask you kind of both. I want to go a little bit further into how you kind of found that bipartisanship that you have on that bill you were just speaking about. But Senator Banks, you are really focused when it comes to defense manufacturing, the Midwest. Talk about that a bit.
Yeah, I'm the son of a union factory worker who made axles in a automobile factory in Fort Wayne, Indiana, all of his working life. And I distinctly remember my dad talking about and we grew up in a trailer park, and my mom and dad's idea of the American dream was that my dad would go to work and work hard every day, and his son might be able to go to college and do something better than what he did. And that for me, and I know for Lisa too, that's what this job is all about, is protecting that American dream for our kids, our grandkids, and I think that, in so many ways, that's what's going on at the moment. Indiana is the top manufacturing state per capita in the country. We're also the top steel producing state in the country. So when it comes to steel tariffs, when it comes to reviving the manufacturing industry across the board, whether it's automotive or defense manufacturing, Eli Lilly is headquartered in Indiana, just made a big announcement a couple of weeks ago about a $27 billion investment to bring pharmaceutical manufacturing back from China. That's all good news. And Indiana is well positioned to, because we are the crossroads of America, to seize on those opportunities that I think are going to come from those opportunities. And that is bipartisan. I mean, that's where we do come together in recognizing that we need to bring those jobs back from places like China and bring them back to the United States of America. A Made in America agenda is something that, I mean, I talk about this all the time, and I don't want to take up too much time, but when I was a kid, my dad, union man through and through, he hated the Republicans. He hated the old Republican Party that kowtowed to Wall Street and sent our jobs overseas. He hated NAFTA. We had a Ross Perot bumper sticker on the pickup truck, and it was embarrassing at the time, but now I kind of get. My dad was for Trump when he came down the escalator, though, so he's a part of the shift in the realignment of American politics. Now he's a Trump Republican because of this Made in America agenda, and it's something that I hope, and Lisa, we could talk about this privately or publicly, but how do we seize on that for both parties to get back to a place where, because in the old days, that's something, Democrats were more on the side of the working man and the working women and unions, the working class, and wouldn't it be great if we could just all come together and sort of seize on that, a new Republican Party that wants to work with Democrats on bringing those jobs back to America, places like your state and my state. I mean, I think we have a powerful opportunity to do that in this moment.
Yeah, I mean, and you were talking about supply chain security, which kind of dovetails exactly what the Senator was just speaking about.
Right. Well, I'm going to take a step back. When I decided to run the very first time, it was after the unexpected passing of my husband. Many people know he ruptured his Achilles tendon playing basketball before a business meeting, and blood clots went to his heart and lungs, and at 52, Charles passed, and I was literally lost. And it was almost a year after his passing that I was just on autopilot in the supermarket, and I saw a dad in front of me with 3 kids put back grapes because they were $9. And it just snapped me out of my own pain and made me recognize I'm okay. I'm blessed. I'm going to be okay. But a lot of people were struggling after the economic downturn. And so I keep that dad and those kids in front of me when I'm doing this work. So even the work on supply chains, having served on the HELP subcommittee in Congress, we saw that there were drug shortages, and we've been talking about pharmaceutical manufacturing. But when the pandemic hit, we saw that all of our supply chains were at risk. All of us were feeling the pinch economically, from a health standpoint, and from a national security standpoint. And so I did a supply chains tour in my state. I literally went to a car dealership where there were only 2 cars on the lot because there were no chips. I went to a place that made mammography machines. What's in those? Chips. I went to a distillery that made vodka and gin. They could not get the glass bottles, therefore the labels didn't work. They had to reconfigure all of their manufacturing. I could go through baby formula, wasn't on the shelves. It was touching everybody. And so that was the inspiration for me to work with the chamber, all the way to steel workers, on how do we strengthen our supply chains and make sure we have a national strategy. And it was a bipartisan effort because we recognize, again, it is our health, our wealth, our national security, and bringing down the cost of goods. This is an area, as Jim said, where there is common ground, there is consensus, and we need to do this for the American people. So as the former Secretary of Labor and of Delaware and head of state personnel, I always say if I had another middle name, it'd be Lisa Blunt, Jobs Rochester, because jobs in the economy are so important to people's dignity and self-worth and ability to even raise their children. So that's why I'm bringing sexy back to supply chains.
Wow.
That's it.
That's the quote of the morning, folks. And you said, wake up, we got some things to talk about here. I want to talk quickly, I hit a couple other things, and we're going to run out of time soon. But one, I'll start with you, Senator Banks. Like, what is the top 2 things you think you are focused on right now when it comes to finding bipartisan kind of allies across the aisle that you want to try to get done this year?
Yeah, I think for me, it starts with defense manufacturing and bringing back our defense jobs and innovation back to the U.S. from overseas. So the NDA, I'm on the Armed Services Committee. I did that in the House as well, and NDAA is on the horizon. We're living in a moment with incredible potential and opportunity for innovation in that space. We don't have a choice. I mean, the Chinese are beating us on hypersonics, and you know, they've leapfrogged us in a lot of other areas, and we have to do that here. So how do we make those giant investments there and maybe retire some of those legacy military platforms that were to fight wars of the past and focus on the wars of the future? Indiana is going to benefit from that. When we already make sonobuoys and Humvees and engines for F-35s, but what's the next technology, the next generation of innovation? We want to make that in the United States, and I think that Republicans and Democrats can come together and focus on that. We'll all be better off for it.
NDA historically always bipartisan. You think that still has the potential to be?
Without a doubt.
Yeah.
I mean, I just came from an Armed Services Committee markup and bipartisan support for the Deputy Secretary, for the Secretary of Navy nominee. Across the board, a lot of bipartisan support for President Trump's team at the Pentagon, and I think that's a good sign.
I would just add, again, supply chains is going to be a priority for me because it touches so many different aspects of our life. But I think the other big issue, and there are many, I'm on 4 committees. We could go through our committees. I'm surprised. It's a lot for a freshman, but we're on HELP. We're health, education, labor, and pensions. We're on environment and public works, banking, urban affairs, and banking, housing, and urban affairs, and then also commerce. And for me, the issue that I hear so much about from my constituents and across the country, and that I've heard from members on our committee, is housing. It is a priority, not just for our economy, but building personal generational wealth for families. And so to me, dealing with the housing crisis is another area that I'm gonna try to focus on, and we've been working already, laying the seeds in a bipartisan way.
And what are you all doing? You talked about some of the early things that some of the veteran senators are doing. Tea, I wanted to know, is it chamomile, Earl Grey? We'll go backstage and talk about that.
That's a great question.
But, you know, are there things that you were kind of trying to plant seeds today to help grow these relationships for the future?
Yeah, I mean, it's just being intentional about it. It doesn't happen in the House because it's a different environment. So, you know, we had a great freshman class in the House, and you know, I think now we have a great freshman class in the Senate where many of us, Ruben, you, me, John Curtis, they're all more thoughtful than I am. So when we get together and talk about the issues and how we can work together, those are great conversations.
Yeah, we started off actually with a dinner together, a group of our class with 2, a Republican and a Democratic senior senator, the senior senators. I'm not going to say their names because they might think senior means something else, but we were freshmen and they were not. So we started off with a dinner. That was a couple weeks ago, I think.
Yes.
And then one of my hopes and commitments is to, again, like try to even do things as a freshman class together, because I think that's really, really important. And on the tea, though, I did want to say I had tea with Elizabeth Warren as well, and it was the best tea flavor I had. I can't find it anywhere. It was actually Thin Mints, Girl Scout cookie Thin Mints tea. I'd never.
She didn't give me that.
She's bringing out the good stuff. You missed out. Oh man.
I'm just saying. I picked it. So I thought that was newsworthy as well.
I love it. Elizabeth Warren, Thin Mint Tea. All right, we have two questions. One, I just want to say, so you've given us some optimism. You guys have talked a lot about how you want to kind of work together. You've had these relationships. But when you go back home, I assume, you know, we're in partisan times. How do you explain when maybe constituents ask you why you're partnering with somebody from the other party? Or do they?
Hoosiers want me to go to Washington and work with whoever it takes to get things done. So, I think if anything, it's their disappointment that more of that's not happening. I don't have to defend it. I don't have to explain it. That's what they want.
Yeah, I agree. I think, if anything, people are more surprised that some of the relationships are happening and that we get some of these bills done. I think, to your point, I haven't heard people say, why are you working with so-and-so? But I do know, you know, we're not immune from the environment that we're in right now. And I think that, you know, I feel it's a responsibility to try to work together. We're not going to agree on everything. Like, let's start there. But let's try to find out, where do we have the intention of making life better for the people that we're here to serve. We don't have to be doing this. I feel honored and blessed to be doing this, you know. And so I think it's important that people see, especially kids, you know, that they see us model what it means to solve really tough problems, because we have really tough problems that we have to solve. And so it's an honor, it's a blessing. It ain't easy, but I try, and we try to bring some positivity even in the dark times when it feels dark. Bring some bright hope.
All right, I would be remiss, and we wouldn't be Punchbowl News if I didn't ask you this. We are obviously in the middle of a massive government funding fight. The debate right now is in the House, but looking like a vote's gonna happen later today. Quickly, that's gonna move over to the Senate. Will you be supporting this package? And Senator, there's a lot of questions about what Democrats are gonna do here.
Yeah, I support it. I mean, we live in unusual times when the Freedom Caucus is for CRs and Republicans are for tariffs, and you know, again, this unique moment that we're in. But we don't have any time to waste, and Republicans and President Trump are adamant about avoiding a government shutdown, move it forward, and for Republicans, then we immediately move on to the reconciliation package.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not breaking any news today, but I know there are a couple of people coming later on that will be on the stage that will potentially break some news. But I can say that, you know, historically, continuing resolutions, first of all, they're not great for our country. They're not great for the military. They're not good things. However, in the past, we have had to do them to allow for time for people to get to the right deal for keeping our government open. We don't want to see the government shut down. It's important, though, that when people say a clean CR, that it really is a clean CR. That's important. I think it's important that the appropriators have the time to do the work. And so what we have been calling for is a short-term CR, because the appropriators were this close to making sure that we had a deal that could be bipartisan. Again, for a panel that is talking about bridging the divide, I think it's important that we show the American people that we can work together, that we can govern. And right now, you know, our Republican colleagues have the House, they have the Senate, they have the White House, and they're gonna do what they do. But we are gonna, again, try to make sure that there isn't a government shutdown, but also that, that the priorities that have been voted on, that we have worked together on, are also protected. So no breaking news from me.
So TBD where the senator will end up. All right.
TBD.
Republicans will need 8 votes in the Senate for it to pass. So we are looking and covering this very closely. Senators, thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.